Imagine stepping into a room where the first rule of entry is to park your ego at the door, lock away your marketing presentations, and prepare to speak with absolute, unvarnished honesty. In the fast moving world of technology and software development, that's not a hypothetical exercise. It is a standard business tool known as a mastermind group. For years, tech founders, digital pioneers, and entrepreneurs have quietly gathered in these small, confidential peer advisory circles to do something that feels almost entirely alien to most traditional sectors. They admit their failures, expose their business vulnerabilities, and seek the collective wisdom of their peers. And to understand why this model is so transformative, you have to look at how a tech mastermind actually operates. These aren't networking events, nor are they seminars where an expert stands at a podium and lectures an audience. Instead, a handful of peers sit around a table bound by a strict non-disclosure agreement. The core mechanism of the meeting is a process called the hot seat. One member is selected to lay bare their most pressing, complex, and deeply uncomfortable challenge. It might be a catastrophic data breach, a botched software rollout that is bleeding cash, or a toxic culture shift within their development team. And the ground rules for the rest of the room are remarkably strict. No one is allowed to offer glib, off-the-cuff advice. No one's permitted to say, here's what I think you should do. Instead, the participants are only allowed to do two things: ask deeply probing, clarifying questions to peel back the layers of the problem, or share a direct personal experience of a time that they were in the exact same position and how they managed to survive it. It's an environment built on radical candor and trust. The tech sphere has long recognized that the solitary nature of leadership can lead to blind spots, and that the fastest way to solve a complex problem is to crowdsource the collective intelligence of people who are navigating the same terrain. The benefit to the participant is a complete absence of corporate posturing, resulting in real-time, battle-tested perspectives that save time, money, and sanity. Now consider the contrast when we look at how the demolition and construction industries handle their sharing of knowledge. Our sector has a long, proud history of trade associations that were originally established to foster this exact kind of collective advancement. Yet over the decades, a subtle and damaging shift has occurred. Many of these institutions have slowly devolved into something resembling private dining clubs. The focus has drifted away from solving the gritty systemic issues of the sector and towards awards dinners and corporate posturing. When knowledge is shared in these traditional forums, it almost always takes the form of a sanitized, self-congratulatory PowerPoint presentation. An executive stands before a room of their peers and effectively delivers a lecture that reads, "Here's a massive, complex project that we completed flawlessly. Aren't we clever?" The messy realities, the near misses, the logistical nightmares, and the expensive mistakes are completely scrubbed from the narrative. This top-down approach creates a culture where admitting a vulnerability or a mistake is viewed as a sign of weakness to be exploited by competitors, rather than an opportunity for the industry to grow safer and more efficient. There is surely immense scope to disrupt the stagnant status quo by introducing a dedicated demolition and construction mastermind group. Imagine a scenario where the corporate mask is dropped and a select group of industry professionals meet under the bond of total confidentiality to tackle the real problems of the sector. The true power of such a group, however, would lie in breaking the traditional rigid hierarchies of construction management. A tech mastermind succeeds because it brings together peers with similar business sales, but a heavy industry mastermind would unblock an entirely new level by creating a 360-degree feedback loop that draws input from every level of the operation. In such a room, the company owner, who carries the crushing weight of financial risk, regulatory compliance, and a shrinking pipeline of skilled labour, would be sat next to a site manager or a frontline plant operator. The value of that collective is infinitely greater than the isolated opinion of a director who is often detached from the realities of the site. When a plan hits reality, it's the working men and women who will be expected to deliver it. They know better than anyone where the friction lies. If such a mastermind group were to gather, a session might begin with the company director stepping into the hot seat to discuss a logistical crisis, perhaps a complex high-reach demolition job in a tight urban centre where the risk of structural collapse or environmental complaint is keeping them awake at night. Now, in a trade association setting, that director would suffer in silence, terrified of tipping off their rivals. In a mastermind, the site manager at the table can immediately offer perspectives on subcontractor friction and the realistic timelines of traffic management on the ground. And crucially, the veteran excavator operator sitting next to them can explain precisely how the machinery will handle under those specific structural loads, identifying hidden structural hazards that a spreadsheet or a digital model would completely miss. By closing the gap between corporate strategy and site reality, a mastermind group could create an entirely new form of industrial intelligence, replacing the top-down lecture with a dynamic, horizontal, problem-solving forum. Suddenly, the industry is no longer waiting for a quarterly journal or an annual seminar to address the pressing issues of carbon reduction, machine maintenance, or site safety. Instead, a real-time, multi-level council is actively dissecting failures and sharing best practice without the need for a trophy or a round of applause at the end of it. It raises a fascinating question about how a competitive, traditionally guarded sector would adapt to such an idea. Our industry is notorious for its fierce rivalries and protective nature over proprietary methods. Yet the challenges modern contractors face are becoming too complex for any single boardroom to solve in isolation. The skill shortage, the rapid advancement of attachment technology, changing emissions regulations, and the sheer volatility of project margins requires a sharper tool than a private dining club can provide. By shifting the culture away from performative success and toward collective problem solving, an industry mastermind could become the engine room for real progress. And it invites us to imagine an industry that is curious enough to learn from the tech world, brave enough to dismantle its own hierarchies, and secure enough to let the people at the sharp end shape the future of how the work gets done.